Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Money, Life and Gags with Harry and Mark. How are you, Harry?
Mark, I'm doing really well. How are you?
Very good, mate. We've got an interesting topic today. It's probably a bit close to the heart. It's going to tug a few strings, I think. But yeah, we're going to talk about parenting, eh?
Yeah, we are going to talk about parenting because we're both parents. Um, I don't know why this topic came into our mind. I thought about when I was growing up as a young kid and how parenting styles have changed over the last 30 to 40 years, and it keeps evolving.
Well, it certainly changed a lot. Like, I know we've touched on it through previous podcasts a bit here and a bit there. But yeah, certainly the way, if you think about the way our parents were brought up, then you move on to how we were brought up. And then you look at how kids are brought up today, including us and other parents. It's like massive change.
Huge
And
change.
And some of that's macro because, the environment's changed from a safety point of view. Some of it's, I don't know, we gone from low touch parents to still low touch parents to high touch parents where, they're helicopter parents. So, where, yeah, so it's really interesting. It's,
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if you remember. Does it have to do with parenting? Maybe yes or no. I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but did you ever?
a little bit.
Yeah, come on, mate. I'm only a couple of years. Get real. But did you ever cop the strap when you were in primary school, or were you too, or that had disappeared?
No, no, no. I actually, I don't know if I still hold the record, but when I was at school, I held the record for the amount of straps I got at school. And then,
Oh, really, Mark?
well, yeah, on the hands, you'd put your hands out and like on the strap here and the strap there, and the teachers took great joy with that back then. But I held my nerve. I just took it, and it was not a prevention or a deterrent for me to misbehave. Put it that way.
No.
It was the badge of honor. Okay, I'm going to get it today.
Yeah. I thought. I mean, I'm guessing now, but I reckon by about when I was in grade 4, that the strapping had stopped.
No, I pretty much got strapped all the way through primary school. And that would have been through to probably not grade 6, but grades up to grade 5. I remember being strapped. I remember I used to push teachers to the brink. I'd have, remember the old blackboards with the what do you call those? The dust
Box.
duster. Yeah, the thing that would wipe it. What do you call those things? This. Yeah, the dusters. I used to get it pelted at me, and
Oh, really?
yeah, because I wouldn't shut up. I wouldn't listen. Like I was a horrible kid. Never did
You
he?
know what's interesting? Each time I used to get the strap and go home, and my parents would find out about it, you know what they would say? Well, you should get the strap more often. But wasn't a problem. Like there was joy in their face.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a form of discipline back then. Thankfully, it's not done these days. But unfortunately, the pendulum swayed all the other way, where students can pretty much do what they like, and teachers and authorities in schools, their hands are tied at a lot of it. So you've got to create different forms of discipline now. And but we don't want kids getting belted with straps and the canes, knee sticks as well. And
Nah.
but no, but back in my primary school days, yeah, I was renowned for it.
Wow. So let's talk about no, no, I don't want to go back to our generation when we were kids because we sort of like know that it probably wasn't right. I think we've all come to that conclusion.
I would say it was good and bad, right? Like you certainly grow up more resilient, I reckon, than today's kids. Today's kids are not as resilient because parents, including me, I'm guilty of this, smother the kids.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, why have you done this? You're going to do this. It's like we want to fix everything today. Don't worry. We don't want to have any bad experiences, no mistakes. And so I think, as I said, I'm guilty of it too. But I think there's a back previously, not that you were left to your own devices, but there wasn't the level of helicopterness around parenting as there is now. And so you become a bit more resilient, where today's generation, not as resilient, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's funny, Mark. I don't have to Google this. Or am I guessing? I probably am guessing, but back in our day, there were less kids that were depressed 40, 50 years ago than comparing it in 2025.
That could well and truly be true from a statistical point of view, but you'll never know the facts because back then, nothing was diagnosed because kids were like, I look at ADHD, right? And there's a lot of kids that are now diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah, they are.
If you look at the behaviors, they're not dissimilar to the behaviors that back when I went to school, he's an idiot, he's a troublemaker, he's a he's always mucking around, he's not listening. And yeah, I would say maybe if it was measured then, you probably have a high level of ADHD, but it was just categorized as bad behavior as compared to any level of attention disorders. So going from generation to generation is not easy because the environment's not the same. Now we test for everything, Back then, though, if you had a cold, they still didn't even test for you. So
Yeah. So why do you think, I mean, having young children or young children growing up, do you ever think that, geez, I'm a good parent, no, I should do better, I can do things differently? Or do you just go on and day by day, and hopefully one day your kids will turn back and say, geez, my dad and mum were really good?
Um, it's not something I think about a lot. Probably the one thing I think is difficult is being an older parent. The patience is different as
Right.
compared to being a younger parent. So I find myself, I don't have a lot of patience at the moment. Like my kids are driving me batty in just this week. That's why it's a real topical subject for today because, if I could sell them somewhere, I'd consider it and see what sort of return I'd get. But
Let's list them on the stock exchange.
yeah, no warranties though. But but yeah, so and I think a lot of it's to do with age. Like I think when you're a younger parent, maybe you can relate better and you're more patient, perhaps.
Mm.
'Cause I'm finding myself in life, I'm less tolerant, I'm less patient. They're not just children and parenting. I'm less tolerant of everybody and people and business and so forth. So I think age has an element to do with it. I don't do a lot of self-assessment. If my kids are on this podcast, they'd be telling you, Dad yells all the time. He's a short fuse.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they play on it. I'm sure they know, "Oh, let's roll Dad up today." And, yeah. Well, they contribute to it, especially my son, Archie. He really loves the niggle. Um, so there's an element of me and my timing, my age and being a parent. Am I a good parent, bad parent? I think that's for others to judge and ultimately my kids to judge down the track. I think as parents, for every generation, we screw up our kids in many different ways. And our
Oh,
parents do it
absolutely.
in their way, we do it our way, and yeah. So there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect parenting. Don't do enough, do too much, don't spend any time with them, spend too much time with them. Who knows, right? It's the worst job in the world as far as how you get prepared for it.
But I have seen one distinction, Mark,
What's that?
and as much as people try to disprove this theory, I think it's true. Maybe because of the way that I was brought up, kids today are bloody spoiled.
I agree with that, but
Like,
I was growing up too. I was spoiled.
oh, not as much as this generation, Mark. Come on, there's a bit of a difference.
The difference is there's more devices now, and there's more that technology driven in that. But if I think about what my parents did for me as far as spoiling me, like I was a spoiled, like I wasn't a spoiled brat. I didn't sort of was unappreciative or anything like that, but I was a right whole shit of a kid. And, the torment I gave a lot of people growing up, a lot of that was because, there wasn't a lot of boundaries at home. And so it's a different type of spoil. But yeah, I would say at a monetary level, at a device level, at a entertainment level, yes, there's a lot more spoiled because I think parents are investing a lot more time in their kids these days as compared to what happened in previous generations. I think it was more be seen, not heard.
Mm.
Like it didn't happen to me so much, but I think in my parents' generation, they would get up in the morning, they would just go for the day. Parents would never know where they were. They were just gone for the whole day. And as long as they were back for dinner, that's all that mattered. They're back for dinner. And if you were hungry, come back for lunch, have something to eat, and go again, right? So where that doesn't happen as much days. These days, it's Dad, can you drive me here? Mum, can you drive me there? Kids are not.
Don't you think also it's funny that you should say that, because I said something to my oldest daughter, and who has her own child now, And I remembered saying to her, I said, I plead with you, don't go crazy doing activity after activity after activity for your kids, because the amount of activities that I did for my children, it wasn't music, it wasn't sports. And by the way, I've got nothing against sports. I think I'd rather have kids doing something active than bloody watching TV. But it was just more than the TV, Mark. It was like sports, and then to music, and then to theatre. I mean, you were just super tired, and all this time, or in my opinion, anyway, I'm thinking that now this is the right thing to do. You've got to keep kids busy. But mate, we're all bushed by the end of it. And reflecting back, I think my kids have just done too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they did, but yeah, but if like it was the 5 days a week that they were doing stuff, or was it 3 days a week? You know,
Look,
what was
there was something literally on if it wasn't every night, it was every second night. And once the weekend came away, came around, there were compulsory Saturday morning school sports. My kids went to private school, so that was compulsory. And even if that wasn't enough, on the Sunday, I had to take my son to bloody soccer. So it was continuous. I mean, it was one day after another. And sometimes I think I just wonder if I just did too much.
So if you didn't do that and you had your time again, like, what's the alternative? Like, just
The alternative is, yes, your children should do activities. Maybe it should be once every second or third night. Not every night, Mark. Not every night.
it depends what it is, and depends if they're passionate about it. But I agree, something every night, their body doesn't, especially when they're growing up, their body doesn't get time to recruit for, and their brain doesn't get a break. But yeah, it just depends what it is, and and is it for an hour or is it for 3 hours? I think that plays a part as well. But the weekends, yeah, sport just goes like that now. Like our Saturdays and Sundays are dominated by sport, which we love.
Yeah,
And the kids love doing it.
yep.
But yeah, like if they didn't do that, I'd actually be concerned what they would be doing, because I'm only judging by my family. But if they don't do those things, then they just become lazy shits.
Yeah,
They don't,
yeah.
yeah, right. And so I'd rather no, no, I am lazy. They can't have any of my lazy. So so their parents can be lazy, not the kids. Yeah, but it.
Put any- Do you put, Mark? You put any emphasis? I mean, my children are all grown up now. But do you put any emphasis on your kids achieving high marks at school?
No, no, I'm not big on education for as a measure of what you're going to do in life, or succeed or not succeed. I'm not saying education is not important. I don't want them to be ignorant and illiterate or anything like that. But no, and maybe that's because how I lived my educational life. But
Right.
for me, my target was 50.1% in every education thing I did. 50.1%. As long as I got that, I'm happy. I didn't want 70s, 80s, 90s. I wasn't interested in any of that. I think there's a bit of that in my kids, just through gene transfers. But no, I don't. We don't put a lot of pressure on. Like, there's more about the discipline of education. So if there's homework due, you get it done. If you got to go to class and do something, presentations and whatnot, be prepared.
Got to get it.
So,
Yeah.
so those things I care about, which is part of the discipline of what happens after school in your life.
Yeah.
Discipline's important. Punctuality is important. Attention to detail is important. So they're the things I like the kids to take away. But whether they're any good at bloody algebra or whatnot, who
Doesn't
knew
stand it.
who Napoleon's all his wives were, or any of that sort of stuff, I couldn't give a crap. And it's not a measurement for success.
Let me ask you another question.
What say you? You, Val?
I do. I would be concerned that if my children were at school today and they came and their reports came and it constantly said D, or if we had the ranking A, B, C, D, the way that I remember it, I don't think it's done like that today. Geez, I'm showing my age. And it was constant D in every subject. I think I would have an issue. Certainly it doesn't have to be A's, but I would be concerned. Exactly what you said. If it was at 50.1, I think I would have an issue with that. Yeah.
Lucky you.
We have the bloody issue.
But I'd like to tell you a funny story. Like when for me, it extended out to uni. So like I used to go to uni, but I never went to the classes. And yeah, but
It's different a lot.
I mean, I always knew what needed to be done, but so the only class I would turn up to was when an assignment was due, and I'd hand it in, and the lecturer would say, "Who are you?" Because that's one never there. They didn't know who I was. And then exam time, and exam time, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
So, so, and you still achieve, right? So, but each to their own. A lot of people do put a lot of value into the education and how their kids are prepped for life. I'm more interested in the values of what values they have, the ethics they have, the work, the ambition, that sort of stuff. A lot of the education they get taught in schools today, how much of it do you really use afterwards outside of a specialty area? Very little about it. Yeah, so if you get A in maths, unless you're going to be a mathematician or use a lot of that stuff for what you can do for a living, who cares? If you get 50%, 70%, 90%, who really cares? These days, everyone uses the calculator. So,
Yeah. Let me change it for you. Do you think it's important once kids reach the age of 15 years old, they have to go get a part-time job?
I think it's a great idea. I did it for a period of time myself growing up. And then I stopped for a period of time. And then when I got my license, I went back to it. But yes, I think it's great. So,
Excellent.
my boys, he just turned 15, and he's applying at the moment. He's potentially got an opportunity at Domino's that, they've expressed some interest there. So, he'd be the funniest pizza maker you've ever seen. But nonetheless, if they want to give him a go, that'd be awesome. So yes, we're encouraging him to look for work. He's keen. He wants that money so he can do some of his own spending.
Yeah, of
and things like
course.
that. But yeah, no, I didn't do it a lot growing up. I only did it for a period of time. But I reckon if I'd done it more, I would have held me in good stead. Did you have any part-time jobs?
No, look, I'm pretty strong that kids should have their part-time job because it teaches them accountability, it gives them a sense of independence. It also gives them a chance to organize themselves with money. Do you want to go below? Go below. Do you want to save it? Go save it. So, and I think I'm a big believer in that because when I was a kid, mate, let me tell you, I was always working. I mean, I was making 10. Yeah, absolutely.
What work were you doing?
Geez, McDonald's. KFC. Oh, yeah,
I
McDonald's.
didn't mention you wearing the McDonald's hat and making weird burgers or fries.
Yeah. No, I did that, Mark. Macca's, KFC, restaurants, waiter. I did a bit. I was a barista. I was always working.
Really? There you go. And learn something new today.
Yeah, no, and my parents were encouraging me to work. The my biggest problem, it wasn't an issue. Whatever I was earning, I was just blowing it.
But that's okay at that age. Like I think you got to enjoy the spoils of your efforts at some stage through your teenage years and going into your 20s. If you're still doing that when you're 40, then you're going to blow yourself up. But in those early years, it's okay to have spending money, go out, buy your things that you want, and so forth. I don't have a big issue with that. What I try and tell my family is split it in half. Put half in the bank and go below the half, whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
And at least it's not all gone on materialistic things, and you got a little bit there, which at this stage, touch wood, they do.
I tell you what my old man did to me when I was 18. My car was running out of petrol, and as I was driving into my dad's driveway because I was living at home, it just made it. It just made it into the garage, mate,
Yeah.
next to my old man's car. To the point where in the morning I tried to start it, nothing was happening because there was no petrol.
So we just roll the.
And it was rolling in, Mark. It just rolled in. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I actually asked for my old man if we could take me to the petrol station. And the old man goes, "You're out at bloody nightclubs coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're working. I'm about to go to work and you think I'm going to give you $10. It's not happening." I said, "Okay, look, that's fine. Can you lend me $10?" And to walk from my dad's house to the petrol station was probably about a 20-minute walk. My dad wouldn't even do that. All right. So he wouldn't lend me money. He wouldn't take me there. And I had to work for about a week so I can get paid. Let me tell you, I never ran out of petrol ever again.
Yes, and that's the life, right? Is it? he'd done that for you, that would not have been a good outcome, as then you would have been too easy and you wouldn't no life lesson for you.
No. How are you with your kids? Because you've still got some young kids. How are you with them on social media? Because that's been banned in Australia if you're under the age of 16. Is that right?
I'm not sure. So we limit it. So I have we have iPhones here, and so through my iPhone, I can control what they do on their iPhones, and I can limit how long they spend on the phone, which apps they can use.
Can you actually see what they're viewing?
Not necessarily what they're viewing. I think you've got to allow them a little bit of latitude on that front. I don't want to go to that degree, because generally behaviors will tell you if something's wrong. And especially my kids, I can tell if something's not quite right. And but yeah, so see, actually, my youngest daughter, she doesn't have a phone yet. She will get one next year when she goes to high school. But for now, she hasn't had one, so she just does a few things on her mum's phone.
Yeah.
And but Archie, my 15-year-old, he has a phone because it's for school and so forth. So like he has things like Instagram and Snap. So because I don't want them to be totally disconnected from their friendship groups, where a lot of that's how people communicate these days, right? They don't ring each other, they text, they use Snapchat. That's how they communicate. So I don't want him to be alienated from any of that. But we do, So the phone access starts at 7:00, finishes at 7:00. Games, for example, there's only 1 hour a day he can use on games. After that, no more games.
Oh, that's pretty good, Mark.
Yeah, so there's some measures we put in there so that he doesn't become too addictive to it. Like all of us, I think that's just a generational now that everyone's addicted to phones in some form. But yeah, so in that aspect, we put some controls there, but still allow some freedom to do stuff. Now, is he going to, like a lot of the like YouTube and things like that? There's there's content things you can put there, so it can't be explicit content and things like that. So we have that. But I don't want to control to the nth degree. Then he's totally naive to the world. There's got to be a level of trust with balance and bumpers around it.
I have an issue with it's happening with the boys too, and with the girls. Look, it could have happened to us as well. The way that these kids shop, and the way that they chase the brands, and we're not talking cheap brands, mate. We're talking like big ticket items too. It shocks me. I did read somewhere the amount of girls by the age of, is it 15 to 18 or 16 to 18, that the average spend on the bag, whether it's, I don't know, Gucci bag or bloody Armani or whatever they're bloody called, it's $3,500. When I read it, I had to read it like 5 or 6 times. I'm saying to myself, what the hell has a young girl, 16 years old, have a right to a bag that's worth $3,500?
Who's paying for that?
Now here's back to my original question. The parents.
So they're buying their kids $3,000 bag.
Yeah. It was in an article. Was it just after Christmas last year, that how parents are spoiling their children, and the expectation after the $3,000 bag. You can imagine what comes after that.
Yeah, the $100,000 car, the ring, that's nuts. No, I've not experienced that. We certainly don't do anything like that. I'm not experienced. I haven't been exposed to that type of lunacy.
It happens, Mark.
If it does, though, they're not helping their child by, like, even if you can afford to waste $3,000 on a bag, at the end of the day, it's
nuts. Yeah.
What lessons are you teaching your kids if you do that? That doesn't. Yeah, that one I don't agree with. I struggle with that one.
Okay, let's move up the age barrier, because this article's coming back into my mind. The amount of parents who are still assisting their children at the age of 22, 23, 24, right up to the age of 27, and they're working full time.
So when you say assisting, you mean like living at home?
No. The article wasn't talking about living at home. They're talking about funding regular overseas trips, changing motor vehicles to a bigger brand. Like we're going from, I don't know, Toyota Camry, not there's anything wrong with Toyota, to going to a bloody BMW. These are the needs and wants of young adults. So it's alarming
you're hanging out where you see all that stuff, mate. I don't see any of it.
And I tell you where it was. It was in the Australian Financial Review.
Right.
So it's not something that I'm coming up with now. It was in the AFR. These things drive me nuts.
Yeah, that look. Ultimately, it's each to their own. But if parents, if you're doing that sort of stuff, I just don't think you're preparing your kids, your children for adulthood to be fully functionable adults and then be great parents themselves. Like
Well,
you said, I mentioned earlier that like you don't get any training, any education on how to be a parent. So you generally learn from previous generations and how you were parented to, and how others were parented and so forth. That's all you got, all right? But I don't think there's too many people that read handbooks on parenting before they become a parent, right? We just
Right.
have fun, have a baby, move on, and then we're learning on the run, and then it just becomes your innate skills. And so if they and children learn through learned behavior, and so if their parents are spoiling them to that degree, it's going to be hard for them at some point the money will stop and people will have to work it out for themselves. And so that bar is so high at a lifestyle level. How do you come down from that? If indeed you do come down, how do they partner? What are the expectations on that partner? It's pretty
Really
tough.
shit. I agree. Let me change it for you again, Mark. I don't know the percentages, but it's incredibly high.
Yeah.
Are you aware that kids from the age of 14 right up to 18, the amount of times that they've actually utilized an illegal substance? I'm talking drugs now.
Yeah. Look, I'm not familiar with the statistics, but I'm not naive to think that it doesn't happen out there. I think it's too widespread that at an experimental level, probably most kids are trying. Hopefully not at 14 and 15. I hate the.
Oh, yeah, mate, it's happening at 14 and 15.
Yeah, look, I can't categorically say that our children haven't, but I'd be relatively confident that they haven't, because I haven't seen any changes of behaviour they don't always school, come back home, so they're not exposed to outside of home environment that much where that type of stuff would happen. But yeah, that's scary. Like that's
It is really scary.
and good things from drugs. I know everyone wants to have fun and experiment, and back in the day, ours was alcohol, now it's drugs. But some of them are so bad and so addictive and so destructive to your life. I know everyone wants to experiment, wants to do things, younger generations want to push those boundaries for themselves. But yeah, drugs are a bad thing. It's not going to go anywhere. The best you can do is educate your kids about the dangers associated with it and just hope they say no.
And I guess, I still apply these principles for myself today. Who you hang around with is who you become.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. So that's why you hang around me, right?
You're pretty quick. You're pretty quick today, buddy. You're pretty quick today.
No, I think the peers that you hang around with, I think that's an appropriate comment. So if you're hanging around people that are heavily into drugs, then it's pretty hard for you not to get involved in drugs because you're just exposed to it. There's the expectation, that peer pressure and so forth. So yeah, selecting, but it's a bit hard as a parent to try and create. That's why I think sport's great, because the people that are so with sports are generally not heavily involved in drug taking and so forth. Last pod we spoke about crime. There's a correlation between drugs and crime and home invasions and things like that. So I'd rather over commit to sport and every day doing something and so forth, rather than having this potential latency time that could get involved in wrong people, wrong crowds and so forth. So there's a method to the madness.
Let's talk about the wrong crowd and the wrong people. Have you ever had the opportunity where some of your kids' friends have come over, and sometimes your gut feeling, based on nothing, is just a gut feeling, Mark, as a parent, and you've gone, geez, I don't like that kid.
Hasn't happened in my friends of my kids, but it has happened in partners or family members and friends of family members. And I'm a pretty black and white person, as most people would tell you. And so there's one, like if my family were here, they would tell you how drastic I am. But when I get that feeling, I eliminate. And so,
But it's based on nothing, eh?
no, it's based on my instincts.
But your instinct is backed up by no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, my instincts is all the evidence I need. Yes, I don't need to see them in the act. I don't need to this. I don't need to that.
Mate.
And so yes, I basically make them feel very uncomfortable to be here. To the extent that you're not welcome here. You got to leave now. And so I've done that on Christmas Day. I've done it on birthdays. The one thing I'm not very good at is hiding my feelings. If I don't like you, you're gonna know. And if I don't trust you or feel there's something wrong with you, you're gonna
See you later.
yeah, and I don't suffer those things. I'm probably a bit harsh, but I follow the rule that, if I'm right 80% of the time, I'll take that, and the people who are but unjust for 20% of the time, move on, get over it.
And sometimes, Mark, your gut feel for a particular kid, no matter how young, the parents could be wonderful. The parents could have great principles that could be ethical, that could be honest, and they just may have a ratbag of a kid, and you've picked it up.
Yeah, it could be that, or the apple doesn't fall far from the tree as well, and so they're
Yeah, that's
shit.
true too.
So, I don't discriminate. If I don't like you, you're out and you're gone. I grew up all the way through it. Family members, I did it. I remember I used to tell my parents, that person's no good, this person's no good, get rid of them, then they're just going to suck you for money, they're going to this, they're going to that. No one ever listened because I was just a kid. But as time went on, I was proven right. And so, if my parents were here today, they tell you, I have that innate skill where I can assess people and make really good, instinctive calls on people. And but yeah, I don't want negative people in my life. I don't want takers. I want givers, not takers. And so whether they're friends of my kids or family members or partners, I don't really care. I don't subscribe to it because it's family. You got to tolerate it. I'm not interested in that. Life's too short. I only want good people around me.
Yeah.
How do I determine a good?
Yeah, it's actually a very good point. Okay, let me put a hypothetical because let's say your children grow up and they're 25 years old now. Okay?
Get it out of the house. Go. You get on.
Yeah. And they get themselves into a lot of hot water. Let's talk because most of them get into problems with bloody credit cards and afterpay and this pay and shit pay and all that sort of bullshit.
Shit pay. That's a good. We should.
Mate, let me tell you, it's called shit pay. Do you bail them out?
I need to understand. I'll never say yes or no exclusively. I need to understand the situation. So, for example, if it was gambling debt related, for example, and me bailing them out just means I'm feeding into their gambling habit, then and I'd try and support them, work with them on the genesis of the problem. So the credit card's not the problem; it's the activity that's the problem. So I'd always want to know what the facts are that's caused that situation. Did they get scammed? Did they just not really good with money and just bloody bought a TV they can't afford? It depends on what it is. I wouldn't sit here and say, here's some money, pay it off, and then, keep your credit card and go do it again. I would never facilitate that. But I'll certainly support them through it to help understand the situation. What are the learnings and what can we put in place that if I help you fix this situation, and that'd be Jody and I, not just me, but if we help fix this situation, it can't repeat itself. And so what is the genesis and what are we going to put in place? So if it's a credit card thing, well, they would cut up that credit card and you don't have a credit card anymore. And then you just live on cash that you can earn, and if you want to blow your own cash, you won't blow yourself up, but so it's more use it as an education or use it as a tool to improve or an exercise to improve, rather than say, no, you got yourself in a mess, piss off, go work it out yourself. I don't ever want to be that parent that my kids can't come to me with a problem, regardless of how it.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't want that. But nor do I want it to think I'm an ATM machine and mum and dad's just going to fix everything for them and they can just blow them, just blow money left, right, and center. I don't want to create that environment either.
Do you ever get the?
What about you? What about you? What do you feel?
I'm pretty much along probably a bit more disciplined than what you are. Would I try and problem solve? The answer is yes. Do I save them? Depending on what it is, but 99% of the times I won't save them.
And do you have a different rule? Because I know you got boys and girls.
No, I make no distinction.
No, you don't have a soft spot for it. You don't have your favorite. You don't have one.
Now,
You know,
one thing in my world, Mark, and I actually despise you for asking me that sort of question. In fact, I despise you to my core. And if anyone asks me that question, I actually fire up. I make no distinction between males and females. Zero distinction. And I come from an ethnic background. I might be Aussie born. My parents may have believed in that, right? Because I could see how my parents treated me a little bit different from my sister. In other words, when I was 18, I could go out because I was a boy, but my sister, there were there were a lot of control measures around it. So maybe, going back 45 years ago, 40 years ago, yes. But today, I just will not make the distinction. And I also get fired up if someone says to me, "Oh, well, I'm a female." And it's almost insinuating, well, I can't do it as well as our men. That drives me nuts. Absolutely nuts.
and yeah, I agree with a lot of that. And I think growing up, girls were disadvantaged compared to boys in
Well, they were.
I think it's actually turned the other way now a little bit. I think girls, just because, like if you have a daughter, and you got to have one to understand what it means. Sometimes they know how to manipulate a dad, and they can pull at the heartstrings a lot better than their son can. Sons are more in your face, straight at, just brutal honesty in many respects.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not a lot of sugarcoating, where girls are warmer, and it's not in a bad way. I'm not trying to say that it's bad, but you can. I see a lot more fathers soft towards their daughters as compared to their sons, and not all their daughters, just the one that's a bit more, bit more huggy, a bit more affectionate, a bit more, show better respect, whatever it may be. So that my question was more along those lines, not so much the boy versus girl exercise. I know most of us have all moved on from that from previous generations, because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. You're all
Yeah, me
kids.
too.
But sometimes at different stages, I think I go through quarterly cycles of who I like and who I don't like in my kids. And I'm meant to love you, but I don't always have to like you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's funny because what I've experienced is that, I mean, you obviously treat your children depending on what age group they are. I just find it hilarious with my kids. They tend to look after me because I know I'm going to stuff up something, where I do a bit of traveling. You know how most people do that location bullshit to find out where their kids are?
Yeah, what is it? Life 360?
Oh, Life 360. No, we haven't got that, but they do that. I don't know how to bloody do it. In settings you put on location and you're trying to identify where you are. So my kids do it to me. It was funny because was it last year, or the year before? Look, I can't remember. I'm bloody I've gone to the ice cream shop. I don't know where I was. Mark, I must have been in
In Italy somewhere?
no, no, before I must have been in Muscat, right? I must have been in Muscat. So I'm having this ice cream, and my eldest daughter, she texts me. She goes, "You're eating an ice cream, are you?" And I've gone, bloody hell! How in the hell did you do that? So what happens in location? I found that afterwards they pin. She can obviously see where I am, but if you enlarge the settings on your phone, you can actually see which retailers are around you. So there must have been a multitude of retailers around me, and she knew that I would go for the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Look,
I reckon she actually saw you at the shop. I reckon that you can zoom out and see that your pin is, that lottery or whatever it's called. Yeah. Look,
you behave differently. Look, certainly in my situation, I behave much differently towards my 3 adult children now than what I used to. Maybe, even as much as, well, Lee's my youngest, is 24. I behave much differently. And when he was 18, because 18 he was still giving me attitude, right? Whereas, yeah, he was giving me attitude.
One's not giving you attitude, mate.
Sorry?
At 24, he's not giving you attitude.
Nah, look, I'm quite cool. I mean, sometimes he gives me the shits, but I know how to handle that. I can't shout. I can't do anything. He's bigger than me. He does this UFC boxing bullshit. So what do you want me to do, You know what I usually say? Mate, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to call my mum. My mum's 87. What are you going to do, buddy? So, yeah, mate, your behavior changes, and the discussions are more mature. You start listening from your kids' perspective and how they see life, which is different to the way that I see life. And I've just learned and adapted that they should have the opportunity to live life on their own terms. Whether I think it's right or wrong, it's almost irrelevant, if that makes sense. Because I got the opportunity to live my life on my own terms. Why shouldn't they have the same opportunity?
Yeah, I agree. Just no crime.
I know, no crime.
No crimes, but yeah, go do what you do what you love, all that, but no crime.
Yeah.
Very eagle. Geez, nothing to today, mate. It's I think you've picked up on a perler.
Yeah, we certainly have. Have you got anything to add before we sign off, buddy?
No, no. I think I've vomited all over this topic for most of this 40 minutes that we've been on it, and yeah, I don't have anything for. I'm drained, mate. I've got to go have a sleep now.
Oh, you're gone, are you, mate? And hence your age. Well, mate, on that note, mate, look forward to the next episode.
Likewise, mate. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.